Police officers make dozens of decisions daily whether or not to issue a citation, whether to make an arrest, in fact, even whether to enforce a law or not to enforce a law. These decisions are actually rather complex, so they're made very quickly. They're not made on the basis of whim or whimsy, and in fact, sometimes follow the officer's own decisions and sometimes follow the political movement that may be afoot in the department. For example, let's say an officer is called out at 2 a.m. in the morning on a complaint about a neighbor who's making too much noise, having a loud party. Officer arrives, there's a man from the house where the complaint's been levied against who's standing on the lawn, he's urinating. The man sees the officer, turns, raises his fist and curses at the officer, goes running into his house and slams the door. Well, as the officer approaches the door, he's thinking, do I make an arrest? I can arrest the man for being disorderly. I can arrest the man for urinating on the lawn. I can arrest the man for public or lewd and indecent exposure, since his penis was exposed during the process of urinating. Or the officer could, in fact, counsel the man. He could ask the man to lower the music, advise him he shouldn't be urinating on the lawn, and have it at end. So we have a number of decisions an officer can make. Many of you, when you're driving along the highway speeding above the speed limit, and you hear the siren, you see the light in the back approaching, are praying that first that officer had a good day, because you're hoping that officer won't issue a citation. You're happy that he has the discretion to make those decisions of whether or not to enforce the law or whether or not to enforce the law. Given the sheer number of laws that are on the books in every state, it would be almost impossible for an officer to be well enough versed on all those laws to enforce them consistently all the time, even if they wanted to. But it's not always in their best interest, or the public's, or the politicians, to enforce all laws all of the time. For example, at some periods in time in a community, it might be necessary to enforce certain laws, targeting laws with a priority. In some communities where they're having problems, for example, with prostitutes, the political mood may be such that the law enforcement agency is instructed you really have to suppress prostitution, and the department will aim at a certain area where, in fact, prostitutes congregate and will be more inclined to actually make arrests of prostitutes. A month or two later, when the political pressure is lighter, they may move on to some other concern. Perhaps there's a wave of burglaries, and they'll enforce more laws having to do with burglaries or safety. So part of what happens with decision-making is what the political mood of a community is. And in other times, it's really much more left to the discretion of that officer.